This is Stewart Rhodes, founder of Oath Keepers. I'm on the phone with the crew down there from Josephine County Oath Keepers in Oregon at the site of the Sugar Pine Mine. And I just wanted to get a quick sit rep from them on the ground to let you folks know what's happening. So Joseph Rice, if you don't mind leading out, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, Colonel Stewart, we're running 24-hour-a-day, 7-day operations with the Sugar Pine Mine security. We have a multi-tier, very complex operation. We have a staging area that's set up with security, communications, a headquarters unit, a PIO unit, a kitchen, medical unit, and supply and distribution. Then we also have parking for participants at the mine. We are running shuttle services out of here. It's also where we do all our vetting. Then up at the mine, we have the security detachment, and then they have the logistical support they need to maintain that detachment and sanitation, first aid, medical, tent, and field kitchen up on site. And they also have a communications unit. We maintain constant communications between staging and the mine site, and they're operating up there. We've had people moving back and forth, you know, as we have volunteers come in and volunteers go out. So we're maintaining our staffing. We do need people. We do need bodies. The miners are maintaining and requesting us to maintain our presence and operational tempo until they get their day in court. They did serve their papers to BLM last Wednesday, and as of today, they still have not received any type of hearing or court schedule from BLM. BLM's continued to make...
Oh, go ahead.
BLM's continued to make false promises. They offered a letter from their special agent in charge saying they would not go on the mine site until the miners got their due process. That was over 2 weeks ago. They've not seen that. Their senior representative out of Washington, D.C., has made false statements in the media. BLM's never burned cabins. Currently, we're collecting affidavits from the miners that have had or been affected by cabins being burned, and this has become a serious issue. Is some of these cabins are historic in nature, they're 75 to 100 years old, and they are protected under the Antiquities Act because they're part of American history and part of the Oregon Trail and the American frontier when we settled the West. So BLM has been in violation of that.
So, but the BLM has also lit fire to cabins that people were living in. Is that correct?
That's correct. In the 70s, there was a late 70s, early 80s, and we have two people here. One of our shuttle drivers knows them directly, and Rick, the claim owner, knows them directly. He had gone into town to get medicine for his wife, and while he was gone, the BLM lit the cabin on fire. She was in it and barely escaped with her life.
And that's one instance. Was there another one of a reported death?
We're still verifying that. We have confirmation on the one, but we're still trying to verify the other report.
Right. So at least one instance you know of where someone's cabin was lit on fire while there was someone inside who barely got out.
Yes. Yeah, and we have documentation of like hundreds of other cabins. We're not talking 5 or 10 cabins. We're talking upwards of 100 or better cabins that have been burned by the BLM, and you know many of them protected under the Antiquities Act.
So the miners, this is the history behind why the miners are so anxious and concerned when BLM threatens to destroy their property.
Well, yeah, you know, there's been confusion, and we've had questions asked, well, why don't they get an injunction, and why haven't they done this? What has not been told well by the media is they have submitted 13 Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIAs, over the last 6 months. BLM said, hey, you have to submit an operations plan. They said, no, we don't. They said, yes, you do. So they FOIA'd BLM, and in those FOIAs, they specifically requested what exactly are they required and how is BLM coming to that determination. Now, BLM's not answering any of their FOIA requests at all until last Friday, I understand they answered one, and that was only because of our presence on site that put some pressure on them. So the miners have been dealing legally with the BLM for the past 6 months. So when the cease and desist order came, they were taking a punitive action without any type of due process, and they have basically refused to answer any of the miners' inquiry through FOIA to support the BLM's assertion that they had to file this operations plan, because under the 1872 law, they are not required to.
I see. Now, you asked for volunteers. It's pretty clear that you're not restricting volunteers to OathKeeper members. You've had guys there from the 3%er group, from Idaho and Oregon. You've had people from other groups. And you're accepting anyone who's qualified. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have had people from OathKeepers, Idaho 3%ers, Central Oregon Constitutional Guard. We have had the Michigan Regulars. We have had people come from all over the country. We had a gentleman, he spoke with his father, retired lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he got in his car and drove all the way from Alabama. We had another gentleman show up here yesterday. He watched what was going on, decided he needed to come out here and support the Constitution and the freedoms. He drove from Revere, Massachusetts, all the way to Massachusetts, showed up here, and he's a naturalized citizen from Bosnia. We had another gentleman drive in from South Carolina. We've had people fly in from Colorado. We've had them drive in from Arizona, Nevada, Texas. We had them come in from Alaska, out of Homer, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana. They've come from all over the West to support what we're doing here, and it has been a mix of everyone, all focused on the Constitution and the preservation of these Fifth Amendment rights for these miners. OathKeepers has operational control. We have command of the operation, and these groups have come in and worked seamlessly. We had a medical team that was stretched from Eugene, Springfield, Oregon, all the ways down to Eureka, California, that came together. They had never worked together, didn't know each other, and out of this, they've now developed and become a regional response team specifically to support OathKeepers and our operations should this ever stand up again. So we've had some very strong networks and some very strong relationships built, and it's had an opportunity for all these different groups to integrate and work flawlessly together, very professional, very disciplined, and very focused on the mission at hand.
That's good to go. That's excellent news. Now, you also had a medical emergency there at the mine, correct?
Yes. Mary vetted 3 media sources. She vetted a television reporter from Channel 12, a local media. She vetted a Reuters and an AMP reporter. When we were up in the mine, the AMP reporter started his interview, and he had immediately a massive stroke. I recognized it. I called down to the camp, requested medical. They responded immediately, and in the Reuters, he also realized he was having a stroke. Both of us attended to him. We were able, with medical, to get him on a litter, and we got him down from the mine site into the ambulance through constant communication with the staging area, facilitating the medical response. And we had him in the ambulance, headed to the hospital within 35, 40 minutes, well within the golden hour. He was then immediately transferred to Oregon Life Sciences by medevac, Life Flight, to Portland. And he went in for emergency brain surgery where they removed a blood clot. Believe it or not, he's up and going, and he showed up here yesterday with his family to thank us for saving his life.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So, and if you had not had a squared away medical team there, what would have happened to that reporter?
Well, that's been kind of an after-action review discussion, and the belief is, and he said it, his wife said it, he could not have been in a better place to have that stroke because we immediately recognized he was having a stroke. We had our medical team respond right away. He was treated and transported to a higher level of care within the golden hour. He could have been driving down the road by himself. He could have been sitting at home, and it may not have come out as well. So, just by the grace of God, he was in the right place at the right time, and we had the trained professionals immediately recognize it and assist them with it.
That's great. Let's go to show the critical need for emergency medicine, regardless of what situation you're dealing with. It's got to be there. So I'm glad
Yes.
to see you guys had someone on hand.
Well, and it goes to show this is a security operation, but we have a lot of moving parts. And just as important as the security team, those other support elements with medical, with the kitchen, with the communications, are as important to make this work, to make it function, to keep things moving and ticking along.
Right, and that's exactly why all those elements are part of our CPT program for community preparedness teams. And you guys are, you're an example of that program at work. This is what it's supposed to be for, is for local teams to be there for their communities and be ready to go.
Yeah, it's integrated very well. What's interesting is we, of course, are nationally going to be compared to the Bundy Ranch. This is the first real stand-up, again with BLM here afterwards. And the probably number one comment that we've heard, well-organized, well-disciplined, very professional. People knew exactly when they came in what was happening, where they were being assigned, what their responsibilities were. And we process everybody in, we process everybody out, and everyone that's been coming in has been fully vetted. So we've taken that fringe element, the troublemakers, out of the equation. We have turned people away, but we've done it in a manner where we thank them for their support. We thank them for coming in to help us. But at this time, positions were filled. But we do need people. We do need bodies on the ground. We do need the continued support in monetary, financial donations, and supply donations. And we do need the bodies to help staff us at staging, communications, logistics, and, of course, up at the mine site itself.
And I want to stress for the people listening to this that so long as you get sufficient donations coming in, you will cover gas for guys that want to come and volunteer, right?
Yeah, and we've kind of prioritized that. Folks that are within a tank of fuel, we've done the best we can. But when we have someone that jumps in the car and drives all the way from Michigan or from Alabama or from Massachusetts, we definitely want to make sure they have money to get home. And as we are able to, we are definitely giving fuel money out to get those people and assist them with getting here and getting home.
So I encourage folks that are listening to go to the Josephine County OathKeeper website, and there's a donate button right there that goes directly to that fund. Joseph, give them that website.
It's OathKeepersJoco.com. So that's OathKeepersJoco.com, and it gives all the current status of the operation, what our current requirements are from personnel. It also has a daily press briefing or situation briefing that's put out by Mary so people understand what is going on and what the current status is. There are video clips, there are pictures so people can see and hear, more importantly, directly from the miners themselves or directly from the participants in this operation, how it's running and how everything's working together. But you have the ability to donate to support everybody here financially if you can't make it. And then also there's the opportunity to donate to the Miners Legal Defense Fund as they fight their legal battle with BLM and help them out.
So if folks can get there, you're looking for, reading right off the website, you're looking for camp cooks, security and tactical personnel, medical, communications, logistics, and also personnel equipment. So you're looking for wet weather gear, waterproof boots, first aid kits, ham radios, etc.
Yes, and we've had some very expensive medical equipment donated to us, provided to us. We had a tactical manufacturer send us body armor and kits for our guys that didn't have it, and so we put that in a cache. People that don't have body armor, they are able to check it out. They have that body armor as they're doing their job up at the mine. And then when they wrote
who was that, or did it want to be anonymous?
I'm sorry, Stewart, I don't have it in front of me, but I would like to get a shout-out to who those guys were, because they raised, I think, $3,000 through a GoFundMe campaign, and they took that and they sent us close to $6,000, basically at their cost, equipment, and I was able to kit out a few guys that, when the gentleman from Alabama drove out, he basically had his rifle and some mag holders, but we were able to give him a set of body armor so he can utilize that while he's here, and then he heads back to Alabama to his body armor will go back in the cache for the next guy that comes in that doesn't have equipment.
Well, that's outstanding. Awesome to get that kind of support. Now, you also have there at the site helping you retired Army Sergeant Major Joseph Santoro, who I asked to come in from Colorado. Sergeant Major Santoro, are you on there?
I am, Stewart.
Hey, what's your assessment
good.
of the operation
we got
there?
from his nap.
Hello?
You hear that?
No, I didn't.
You said they got you up from your nap.
Yeah, right. He can't constantly bust my testicles. You know how that works.
Well, I asked you to
okay.
go down there because your extensive experience in the Army. You spent 25 years in the Army. What's your assessment of the operation down there?
I'm going to tell you straight up, Stewart, I have never seen such professionalism from so many people from disparate organizations. Everybody is working together. The attitude here is not, how or when are we going to get it done? It's let's get it done. Let's get it done as quickly as possible, and let's get it done at minimal cost. I've not ever heard a discouraging word, if you will, on the prairie.
Good to go. Very solid. And what's your assessment of all the guys coming in from around the country? What are your thoughts on that?
Coming in from the trenches?
No, the guys coming in from around the country.
Oh, every one of them is here to protect the Constitution of the United States of America, and that's what we're all about. And they don't want to shoot any worse than anybody else does, but they're prepared to do exactly what our forefathers did if that's a necessity. And let's hope it's not, but we'll see.
And what was your motivation for going there, if you don't mind me asking?
Very simple. To protect the Constitution of the United States, help my fellow patriots stand up against the current administration.
Good to go. Now, you're in charge of logistics there. What are your current needs on logistics? What do you want to tell folks?
Well, we're working the Underground Railroad. We are using the money donations, and we have people that are constantly coming up to our front gate here at the staging area. Every day, they bring different things. We've had them bring shower-type equipment. We've had them bring clothing. They bring up food. They bring up different types of cooking equipment and so forth. We've had the local women have come out here and have fixed food for us over the weekend when we were going through the complete changeover. And I'm going to tell you what, these people here in Oregon, not just here where we're at, but in Oregon, have supported us immeasurably. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to continue to operate.
So you have the support of the locals and the folks in the rural areas of Oregon.
Yeah, well, let me give you an idea. We had a fella come in from Roseburg, Oregon. He's bringing us a ham radio tower, a 30-footer with 4 elements to go on it. He's just going to donate it. It's free. We had another gentleman donate a small Class C motorhome so that we've got somewhere to put our PIO. We just had another gentleman from the church here bring in a 40 by 80 tent that we're going to put our kitchen in and be able to store our food in also. So the things are going very well. I'm real happy from that standpoint. I mean, we've got the tent, we've got 4 laptops, we've got a printer paid for it. We're getting a freezer on an all-call through the railroad. We're asking for reefer, and that's incoming, I understand. We just got a generator, and I'm not sure the size of it. I saw it come in, but I don't know its size. We just picked up a wash station for setting next to the porta potties. We're looking for 2 Wi-Fi hotspots. That would be a real help if we could get that. As far as personnel goes, we need some cooks. 7 days a week. We've got one fella, Willie, who is holding the fort through the week, and the ladies from the local area are fixing our food on the weekend, and that's helping us through, but we could use additional cooks. We've got medical people, 4 of them, but we could use probably 1 or 2 throughout the week so that we could have them, 1 down here and 1 up on the hill. But almost all of those people are currently employed, so I can appreciate that. Anything else you need to know?
Your big needs are medical, cooks, and also some extra radio operators to give the guys some relief, right?
Hoorah. Hoorah, yeah, that would be very good. We're working all those issues, don't misunderstand, but, if we can get it out to our membership nationwide, if there's anybody that wants to come down and be a part of one hell of a good team supporting the Constitution, we'll greet them with open arms, believe me.
Good to go. And other sister groups, too. We're not confining this to Oath Keepers.
Oh, no. Like 3%ers, Oregon folks have come in. People came in from Idaho, 3%ers. So we're getting folks from all over the United States, and some are just walk-ins like a fellow that came in here 2 days ago from Bosnia. He is a naturalized citizen in the United States, and he said when he pulled up to the gate, he says, "Hi, my name's Elvis, and I'm here to protect the Constitution of the United States. Will you take me?" Well, I just looked at him and says, "Well, Elvis, by God, you're back from the dead. You better believe we will." So and, it's hard to argue with folks like that. My God, he drove all the way from Boston, Mass. just to be here because he went to our website. So if anybody's wondering if our website is attracting anybody, you better believe it, because we're attracting 3%ers and other groups out of different states here. So it's paying off, believe me.
That's excellent. And out of this, like Joseph was saying earlier about the medical team that's forming up, out of this will come experience and lessons learned and refinement as we go forward. We learned a lot of lessons at Ferguson. In fact, we learned the lessons at Bundy Ranch we're trying to apply now. And so every time any of these incidents happen, it just refines our knowledge and makes us better every time. So I think it's a good thing across the whole, freedom movement.
Hallelujah. And we're trying to digitize all of the different types of logs that we're going to be needing and keeping track of incoming food and equipment and so forth, so that we don't lose this. And if the person wants it back, we're also having them have their name put on there in indelible ink and their phone number, as well as fill out a property sheet that tells us their name and address and phone number and that sort of thing. So we're being diligent to try and get the stuff back.
That's excellent. Now, I know there was a request from, I think it's Scott. Scott Hicks is one of your local guys there in Oregon, had requested a quad or a couple of quads. Scott, are you on?
Well, I am on, and, we are lucky in the fact that we do have one quad on site. It's a four-wheel drive quad that can have a locking differential and whatnot, and it's very necessary in the terrain that we're at. However, the problems that we've had is one group has to go off one direction and do something that requires a quad, and then we have another group that needs to do something else in a different direction that requires a quad. So we're grateful to have the one that we do have. Joseph was kind enough to bring his personal quad up, and we've been taking good care of the equipment. But having a second one would be a huge blessing to be able to spread that out so people can do what they need to do. Moving trucks and vehicles around is much more difficult than moving a small quad that can carry two people.
All right, excellent. And Scott, you said you've been up there. You've been up on the mine site from the beginning. What's your assessment of the situation?
Well,
I went on the advanced team to see what was going on. I told my fiance, I said, look, I'm going to be gone for about 4 hours. I'll see you later. Grabbed my basic gear, not my camping gear or any of that stuff, and just went up. Matter of fact, rode with some of the other guys that are on the leadership team, and I looked at it all and listened to what the miners had to say, and we realized that it was immediately necessary to secure the mine. It wasn't something that was 2 weeks out or a week out. It was immediate. The security of the mine and the security of the caretaker especially was something that had to be handled right then and there. I've been blessed being a service-connected disabled vet, and I have more time than many other people. So
hey, Scott, hold on. Can you say that again? We had some radio chatter behind you.
Yeah, I've been blessed in the fact that I'm a disabled veteran, so I have the time to do other things. I don't have to work a regular job. And I just said, okay, I'll stay, and I've been there pretty much ever since. I come down to wash clothes and spend one night in my bed at home, and then I turn around and go right back up. And the professionalism that I've seen, I can tell you from my military experience, I have never seen a group of people that come from all different places, from all different backgrounds, from every skill set you can imagine, gel together in one spot, in one mission so well. I'm sure that the Sergeant Major has never seen anything like it before, because I know military groups that would bicker from unit to unit and, argue and chest bump and, all that kind of stuff, the old, gorilla beating his chest thing, and none of that happens here. People come up, they just go, where can you use me? And the thing I think most people don't understand is we don't need a bunch of guys that are, just security. We need people for everything. I had my fiancée quit her job to come up there and cook because it was a necessity. And we've had other people that have quit their jobs just to be there. That's how concerned they are about what's going on with our government trying to take control of stuff that's not theirs. It doesn't belong to them. The documentation is there. I've read it all myself. I read it the first day, and I can see it in black and white. And, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read documentation and read law and go, yeah, that says what it says, and it's all there.
And what was it the miners told you that pressed on you the need to get going right away?
It's the oldest continually running mine in the country. The law dates back to the 1800s. The law hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is the fact that the BLM was created, and then they decided to start pushing their weight around. These guys should be able to be running right now, and it's prime season. I mean, it's bright, sunny, nice outside. They should be up there running their mine. They shouldn't be sitting there being told that they can't do anything. They can't even cut wood. They can't run their sawmill. They can't fix the road. They can't improve anything. They can't do anything because they have an absolute stop order that they can do nothing to the mine right now. But yet they have all the documentation to prove that BLM has no jurisdiction over that. So,
and the concern by the miners was that BLM was going to give them a chance to even get, they were concerned that BLM would not wait for them to do an appeal or fight in court, but just burn down the cabin and confiscate or destroy their equipment, right?
I slept in that cabin the first night, and I really didn't sleep. George was kind enough, because like I said, I didn't have my camping gear or anything. I just said, okay, I'll stay. Everybody else, went, and I stayed. I laid in George's bed all night looking out the windows, because there's these cool windows you can see all the way out around the cabin, just looking for a light in the distance. And I could not fall asleep no matter how hard I tried, because I was just waiting for that movement, that light, somebody to be coming up the road or whatever, because I was concerned about the caretaker and concerned about the property and their stuff, The BLM is really good at coming in and taking all the miners' equipment, burning their cabin, and then they take all their equipment and they impound it. Well, then trying to get it back from what I've spent a lot of time with the miners now because I've been up there the entire time. What they do is they hang on to the equipment up until the point that basically the miners don't even have a shot at getting their mine back, and then if they're lucky, they get their equipment back after 8 years of appeals. So now
right.
It's 8 years later, you finally get your equipment back, but you're worn out and tired, don't want to do it anymore.
It's kind of like having your guns confiscated by the ATF. You'll get them back in a big barrel full of salt water, maybe.
Yeah. You know, they're not taking care of your equipment for 8 years. It's sitting in an impound yard, rotting. You know, it's pathetic and it's ridiculous. But I can tell you the hearts of the patriots that are coming up here, it doesn't matter what group you're part of. It doesn't matter if you claim yourself as 3%, you know, a certain militia group or whatever. We're all just patriots. But I saw this one kid, he's about, you know, in his late 20s. He sold his firearms, he sold his furniture, pretty much everything he had, so he could leave his home state and come here to do this. Now, that was taken care of because I brought it up to leadership and said, hey, you know, this is what this kid did, and they handled the financial expenses of that. But that's how convinced he is that it's necessary for him to be here, and I am grateful to have him by my side because that devotion to the Constitution, that devotion to the brotherhood of our country as a whole is so powerful. You can't stop that. You can't stop a man who believes in his country and believes in his Constitution.
That's the guy from Alabama, is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. What's this? I mean, what I see going on across the whole West is that people are being put upon by the BLM and the EPA and doing everything they can to shut down their access to the land, to shut down their traditional livelihoods, whether it's logging, ranching, farming, now mining. It just seems to be a continual assault on the West. And I think people are realizing that this is not some kind of coincidence. This is part of a concerted effort to destroy the industry of the West and the livelihood of the people. And these are not, you know, wealthy industrialists and multi-million-dollar corporations we're talking about. These are small ranchers and farmers and now these miners here. They're just doing the best they can to get out a living, as they've always have, right?
Well, absolutely. And the guys that we're talking about, you know, we're talking about guys that are, 20, 30, 40 years from their death. You know, we're not talking about young guys. We're talking about old miners who've been through it all, you know, and they're just wanting to work their mind. They don't want to do anything but work it the same way it was worked in the 1800s. You know, the BLM has so much overreach, especially in this area. I like to go gold prospecting. I like to pan in the creeks and that kind of stuff. I also like metal detecting. We got an area here that's, 1800s mine in a different area that the BLM locks the gates and never unlocks them. There's a church. There's actually a church from the 1800s, St. Patrick's of the Woods, that's out in an area behind the BLM locked gate that you can't get to. But it's not wintertime. It's not a possible damage to the roadways or anything like that. BLM just doesn't want anybody out there on the public lands. They just keep the gates locked until somebody complains enough that they can get open. But me as a historian, me as a person that likes to go find pieces of history and go metal detecting and stuff, I can't go out there because I'm also a disabled veteran myself. I can't hike that stuff, which means if the gate isn't open, I can't get to it. But yet it's public lands and public roads in those public lands that I should be able to access and get to.
And that's changed in the last few years? That's when that happened?
No, they've been doing this for a long time. This is not a new thing. This is just finally people are standing up and saying we've had enough.
Right.
Usually the BLM gates are locked during the wintertime in snow areas or in high rainfall areas to protect the roadways so they don't get washed out by guys going out 4x4 and ripping up the roads or getting out there and freezing to death and dying. You know, I mean, there's good reason for a BLM gate in the middle of winter. But when they just lock out public lands throughout the year for no apparent reason, it's overreach.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, what do you want to say to the folks listening out there about coming out to support the effort? Why should they do it?
Because it's the right thing to do. Our forefathers stood up and said, I will, regardless of the cost. My family came to this country in 1621 on the ship Fortune. Robert Hicks came to this country then. So I have a vested interest, but every single other person in this land should have a vested interest as well. And if you can't come, if you can't personally be here, donate. If it's $1, donate $1. If it's $5, donate $5. If you got $1 million to give $1 million, whatever. Just do something. Because there's so many people out there that say, oh, yeah, if I had the time, if I didn't have kids, if I didn't have this or I didn't have that. Guess what? Between me and my fiancé, we got 8 kids. And we've got family members that are all taking care of them so we can do what we need to be doing right now because they understand how important it is. So it's not just me sacrificing. It's not just her sacrificing. It's my parents and her parents that are all sacrificing to help take care of the kids at the house so we can go do the job at the mine. You can make all the excuses you want, but either go or help the other people that can go, because a lot of us that are going don't have the financial resources to do this. We're just doing it anyways. So if anybody else can help alleviate that, we need it. The Oathkeeper needs it. We need more equipment and more tools and more things to make it go smoother, make it a little easier. But I tell you, the number of people that are out there and the people that are working together and the way that this is all gelling, if anybody else around the country wants to know how to stand up, you take this as an example. You start asking questions of the Josephine County Oathkeepers of how they ran their operations, because this is the model, and this will continue to be the model. The model will develop as time goes along. It'll get better and better, but I can tell you right now, this is the best organized movement of people I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Good to go. Yeah, you get solid, good, competent local leadership, and then everyone comes in behind them. That seems to make sense. They know the terrain, they know the people. You know, they're trusted by the community. In this case, the miners approach them and ask for their assistance. I think that is the answer. This is what our forefathers would want us to do: is have a good, competent local leadership team ready to go in every community, whether it's an Oathkeepers or not. I don't care what banner it's under, as long as they're competent and organized. That's the main goal. Hey, what's the sentiment there among the folks, like among all the miners, and what have you heard about other folks as far as being willing now to stand up and exercise their rights?
Well, I know the response for the miners has been impressive, to say the least. A group of miners actually went up to a rock slide that the BLM refused to clear, that was covering a roadway that went to a lot of other mines. And the BLM would not go out and take care of it, so the miners actually went out, cleared the road, and now people that haven't been on their mines, using their mines in a long, long time, are back out there again because of this. They're organizing together. They're starting to create tighter bonds and relationships because they understand that the only way that they can keep their own individual mines going is by working with all the other mine owners. You know, most of these guys are kind of, they like to be away from other people, and they like to be in their own little mine and do their own little thing, but they realize that if they don't work together, that big brother that's coming down on top of them, they're not going to be able to fight them. But as a group, they can really fight back legally, and as a group, they can share experiences. The amount of stories that have been coming out of the woodwork from various other miners in other areas, not even just in Josephine County, BLM overreach and different things that have been going on has been huge. But I see it as a community that's been divided that's coming together, especially with the miners, realizing that they have to be tied to each other in order for them to protect each other. You know, an umbrella doesn't open up with just one little stay. It takes like 15, 20 to make that umbrella pop up. Well, now all those guys are starting to come together, and, man, it's making a difference. And BLM is not happy about it because they see what's going on and they realize what's changing. And they're going to have to change the way that they do business because we're changing the way we do business.
Right. If you're united, they can't just come at you guys one at a time. They have to deal with the entire united community. It's a different ballgame for them.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Hey, what is the current, maybe I can ask Joseph Rice again, what's the current status of any kind of relationship with the sheriff or interaction with the sheriff's department?
Well, Stewart, I've reached out to the sheriff's department a number of times. Unfortunately, Sheriff Daniel has been disengaged from this. He's new in office. We were hoping that he would come in, he would stand with the miners, he would, hold up the Constitution and keep BLM out, but he seems content to sit on the fence. The last conversation I had, I invited him out to see staging, see the mine, talk with the miners, and he says, no, that's your deal. I don't want to get in the middle of it. We did have, last Friday, former Sheriff Gilderson did come out and make a public statement that he does support the miners, and he basically condoned BLM's overreach and their aggressive tactics trying to deny due process. But we have had one of the county commissioners, Commissioner Heck,
You said Sheriff Gilbertson, the former sheriff, you said he condoned it, or you mean he condemned it?
Condemned it.
Okay,
he condemned the BLM action against the miners. And basically he condemned them denying the miners their Fifth Amendment right to due process. One of the county commissioners, Commissioner Heck, has been engaged. He's been out. He has been up to the mine. He has talked to miners. And my understanding is he will be putting out a public statement of support of the miners today or tomorrow. And then Carl Wilson, one of the elected state representatives, today or tomorrow will also be putting out a public statement supporting the miners and condemning the BLM's action of violating their constitutional right to due process. But we've not seen any of that type of activity from Sheriff Daniel, unfortunately.
And it just kind of goes to show the critical importance of the sheriff. Sheriff Gilbertson, who was the prior sheriff until this last year, right, this last election cycle, he was a constitutional sheriff. He'd gone to Sheriff Mack's CSPOA conferences. I met with him when I came to visit you guys down there. He's a solid man. Now, let me ask you a question. If this had happened on his watch, if he were still a sheriff, what would have been different?
This would not be happening. I mean, literally, if this had happened on Sheriff Gilbertson's watch, we would not be here because he would not have allowed it to happen. The miners would have gone to him. He would have contacted BLM. He would have told BLM they're not allowed to go up on the line. He probably would have revoked BLM law enforcement authority, prohibiting him from going up there. He's always stood very staunchly on the Constitution, and in my personal belief, if Sheriff Gilderson was still holding office, this never would have occurred. I believe BLM was testing Sheriff Daniel, and since then, Sheriff Daniel has not been engaged. We know he's talked with the BLM. We know he's talked with other federal agencies, Oregon State Police. He just doesn't seem to have, he put out a press release stating that he was mediating between the BLM and the miners. I spoke to the miners the next day. I said, when did you speak with the sheriff? And they told me that he had not. So they had never spoken to the sheriff, yet he put out a press release saying he was mediating between the two. So he's enjoying the political limelight, but for someone taking a stance against the federal government, he has been absent.
And he's not even doing what he said he was doing, being a mediator, let alone a defender.
No, not at all.
Right.
How are you a defender if you refuse to show up, look at the mine, look at the situation, talk to the miners? That's right. That's not being a defender. And, sadly, the reason we are all here is because he did not stand up and tell BLM to back down. They were not going to go in there. His deputy, Jason Stanton, is the one that went in with the BLM deputy, law enforcement officer, and served the papers to the miners. And Deputy Stanton's the one that stated when George, one of the claim owners, said we're law-abiding constitutional people, it was Deputy Stanton that said, I have issues with the Constitution. And, that's very disturbing. That's what brought the miners to our OathKeeper meeting. And hence, here we are today. I would like to think I met on Monday with Sheriff Daniels. I showed him those sworn affidavits, which are now on the OathKeeper National site. We had a discussion, and he told me he would be talking with BLM. I heard back from him, I think it was the next day, and he felt everything was going to be all right. And so I have called and checked in with him, every other day roughly, invited him out each time to see the operation, and he still has been a no-show.
What did he have to say about his deputy saying he had a problem with the Constitution?
Well, he told me that was unacceptable.
Did you fire him?
No, not as far as we know. He called out of concern that the deputy was receiving threats for his statement, and kind of asked if we could help with that. And I said, well, we don't condone any threats, but basically, the deputy owns the statement. He made it. But as far as I know, the deputy has not been fired. He's still working, and I don't believe there's been any type of accountability for it.
So the word unacceptable to him doesn't really mean what we think it means. It's obviously acceptable.
No, I think, if you want to talk about unacceptable, hey, you're wearing a law enforcement uniform, you're endorsing the law, supporting the law. You can't perform your job if you took an oath to the Constitution of the United States to uphold and defend, and then in the course of your duties you say you have issues with the Constitution. You need to take off the uniform and go find some other type of work to do. You cannot stay and remain in law enforcement.
Amen. He has no business being behind the badge. And the sheriff has no business having a deputy like that on his team. So that kind of tells you where the sheriff's at.
That's the concern. Is if that deputy stays employed, if you have issues with the Constitution, go do something else.
Stewart, this is Scott Hicks. I have something to interject on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Speak up.
I know Sheriff Gil Gilbertson, the former sheriff, personally, and I know for a fact that a constitutional sheriff, even with an extremely limited force as we do have in Josephine County, had this happen on his watch, had the BLM refused whatever he laid out to them to say you can't go there, he would have happily deputized a large number of people like ourselves to be on that mine and to do the job for him. But yet we have this man here who won't even go up to the mine, Sheriff Daniels, that won't even go and look and see what's going on. He won't even discipline a man who says he has problems with the Constitution. It's amazing how much of a difference there is between the two, the former sheriff and the current sheriff, and I felt a lot safer with the sheriff that we had previously because I knew that if I stood up for my constitutional rights and they were violated, I could go to him personally. I could go to his office and tell him what happened. He would listen and he would take appropriate action. Right now I'm on my own because my sheriff that's here now isn't going to do that. He's not even going to talk to me if I have an issue like that. And that's why you guys are having to do it yourselves. If the sheriff's not going to do his job, which is to honor his oath to support and defend the Constitution, then he leaves the citizenry on their own to do it by themselves. And that's pretty sad. But your point is well taken. As Joseph said a minute ago, Sheriff Gilbertson ran, just all it is one election. That's why it's so critical for people to focus on their county sheriff election, because one good sheriff in the right place at the right time can make a huge, huge difference. And the bad guys know that. That's why they're hostile to CSPOA and they're hostile to our efforts to reach out to sheriffs and remind them of their duty.
Well, as Scott said, I'm sure Sheriff Gilbertson, he definitely would have deputized Oath Keepers or whoever's up there to protect the mine and the miners from BLM action. I don't doubt that in the least. But it is, what do? You can't go to your sheriff and say, hey, I've got this situation. He's a politician. He's been on the fence. We had SB 941, which is universal background checks, and just prior to this getting started, we had a protest because Sheriff Daniel opposed the bill, but then the question was asked to him specifically, if this bill should pass, the Josephine County Charter prohibits any official or representative in Josephine County enforcing anything that infringes or erodes the Second Amendment. So our question was, if it should pass, what was his intentions? Was he not going to enforce it, or was he going to enforce it? And he refused to answer our question. He actually snuck out of the backside of the jail and left, so he didn't have to face us. And he called me later that afternoon, and I sat down and had lunch with him. We discussed it. He says, well, I'm working on it. And he came out with a press release, and the press release basically stated that he had more pressing matters to focus on with his limited budget, like felonies and other crimes, and this would be low priority and didn't have the funding to address and deal with it. So, of course, the immediate discussion came up, well, wait a minute. If you did have the funding, you would be enforcing it? So even on that, he's still not come out and stated, if SB 941 passes into law, I, as a sheriff of Josephine County, will not be enforcing this, as other sheriffs around the state of Oregon have already done. So that's what we're working with. And the sad part is when you don't have a sheriff that's willing to take a stand on the Constitution, understand where it's at, you have situations like this develop. And I think he's under the belief because he's not come here or been involved in it, he's okay. What he doesn't realize is his lack of involvement, his lack of willingness to stand up to the BLM and say, no, you're not doing that in Josephine County, has created this situation. It's the reason we're here today.
Hands, huh?
Oh, yeah. The reason we're here today is he didn't tell the BLM, stop. You give this guy his day in court, or I'm removing your authority to enforce any law in Josephine County, which he has the power to do. He just doesn't understand that.
And they know that he won't do anything to stop them, and so they feel like they get a green light. And the only reason they now have a change of heart, apparently, is because of you guys being there. This is kind of like at Bundy Ranch, where Sheriff Gillespie, the sheriff of Clark County, Nevada, if he'd have done his job and defended the rights of the ranching family down there, then that wouldn't have happened. You're right. This is what leads to these things, is where you have sheriffs who don't do their responsibility, don't do their duty, and it leaves the people themselves having no choice but to step in and do his job for him.
Well, that's what it comes down to.
We're not saying that being sheriff is an easy job. We're saying if somebody steps up to you and asks you a direct question, give a direct goddamn answer. Do not turn around and sidestep it and be a politician, because that's not your job. Your job is to be the sheriff and protect the people. And if we ask you a direct question, we expect a direct answer.
And being the sheriff does not mean stepping back in your office and staying out of the street and letting people fend for themselves. That's not what a sheriff does.
No.
Not a real sheriff.
Yeah. It's like having the bad guys right into town and the sheriff takes a vacation and says out to lunch. Or gone fishing.
Hey, Stewart, my comms guy, Doug, he had to get back in on the radios because we're maintaining a 24-hour radio watch. But one thing that he wanted to bring out for anyone that's listening to this, especially Oath Keepers nationwide, we need Oath Keepers to get their ham license. It's a 35-question test. It costs $15, and you can get your technician license. But it's critical that people make the time or take the time to get their ham radio license. Because in this situation, due to the topography and the terrain, that's our communication network with the mine. They are in a very remote, very isolated. We're working through a repeater, but it is a ham repeater. And so everyone that's on there has to follow the proper ham protocol and be licensed ham operators. And so that's one of those areas that has hurt us and hamstrung us a bit because we have not had a lot of people in here that are hams. So I would challenge Oath Keepers nationwide get your ham license. It's going to be needed.
And don't just get your technician class license. If you have the understanding of how to take tests, how to read books, how to get information and process it, we want you to get your general class license, and then we want you to get your extra class license. Because there's certain things that we can do with a whole bunch of technicians, but that limits us. It's better than not having anything at all, but then we also want those general class and extra class licenses as well. It's not that hard. They give you the answers to every single question that they will ask on any given test. You just have to study it all. So as many people out there that are listening right now, first thing you need to do is go on the QRZ website, QRZ.com, start looking at the test questions for your technician class license and start practicing. Get with your local ham radio operators group and get tested. Then start working on your general class. Once you get your general class, you'll know what it's going to take to get your extra. But ham radio is the only way, when cell phones don't work, that you're going to have to communicate.
Yeah, good point. And one of the reasons why you want to get the license is then you can practice and learn to use the radios. Because if you don't practice often, you're just not going to be able to do it when the chips are down.
Yeah. I was just thinking on logistics. I was just watching Sergeant Major Stewart, and we're going to need more cookies. He keeps hovering over by the cookies.
Okay, we'll send some more in. Cookies and cigars. Okay, guys, anything else you want to say to the folks out there before we wrap up here, or did Mary want to interject, your PIO?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Mary, because Mary's been working on the media side of things, and one of the things that she's been working incredibly hard on is getting accurate media and accurate information to the press. That's one thing on this operation that's hurt us. Social media is not an intelligence source. We have used it to our benefits with the interviews for the miners and getting it out there so people can see them firsthand. But Mary's been working tirelessly with the mainstream media to making sure facts and accurate information get out there. So let her describe what she's been working on. But it's one of those things. That's why we directed everybody to the website so they know exactly what's going on, because not everything you're reading out there is the truth. So Mary can really fill in on what's happened with that.
Well, it's a really good opportunity for other groups to realize how important handling the media becomes in any kind of incident. At first, you're overwhelmed by the interest, and you have to form relationships with news directors and television personnel and print medium. But at some point, I made the decision to vet some people because I just couldn't possibly deal with everyone. And that turned out to be a pretty good decision. We recently had a reporter fly out from New York, and it was kind of an unusual choice. But his photographer said to me just a couple of days ago, you know, the face of the Constitution from a photographer's standpoint is pretty dull and quiet. And you guys just made it come to life. And I thought, wow, we turned that guy right there. But, it is a big battle of misinformation. And so I get on every radio show I can. It's pretty unusual if I don't have a day when I'm on a radio show. Some days I've done as many as 4. But I can tell you, if we talk about the kind of help we could need, I could use a secretarial staff. I could use somebody who knows something about IT. You have to get a relationship with the media. And once you have that, you become the face. You become the one that everything funnels through. I'm noticing that as I go on the radio, I'm always asked to come back, which is very kind. But as I catch them out on YouTube or anywhere else, we're getting thousands of hits. And that means there's a huge interest in this. And I think it's something to watch and something to learn from.
Well, good to go.
You know what? I want to kind
of
follow up with that a little bit, Stewart.
Yeah.
In the regards that, I've got operational command and control of what's going on out here. And for anybody, as we go down the road, it's physically impossible for me to meet all the needs of what has to be done. And the media and the inquiries from the media take up a tremendous amount of resource time. So having a very strong logistics, supply, communication, PIO are critically important to something like this, because what it has done, it's freed me up to focus on the mission, which is the security of the Sugar Pine Mine. And so when you vet your people and you have competent people that take that media direction, that take those things, it's something you don't have to do. My days still are 18-hour days, and they are having their 16 to 18-hour days with all this stuff too. So, when anybody that goes in and takes operational control of some of these things down the road, they have to understand that's a critical element. They can't do it themselves. They have to rely on their team leads and let them do their jobs and trust them in doing their jobs, because that has been huge. Mary's control of the media and maintaining the access and vetting it the way she's did, that would have eaten up 60% of my resource time when I need to be focusing on other things like people and setup and security at the mine and those types of things. So that's a needed item, but it has to be one of those items that has to be dealt with, because it's important to get the accurate information and message out to everybody that wants to help or is looking to come.
Yep, agreed. That's why it's good to have a dedicated media staff. In fact, that's something we probably should just start calling for within Oath Keepers in every chapter. One thing that you still also need, though, is a good cameraman to go with that. So I'm sure Mary would confirm that. It'd be good for her to have a dedicated camera team that's with her at all times, right, Mary?
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it's backup to what the media does to your interviews, and so it would really be a security thing for us as well, where we could counter some of that.
Absolutely. You should be recording. Anytime you give an interview, you definitely should record it, even just on your phone. I do that all the time, and then they know that if they misquote you, then you'll call them on it with your own version of your own copy. So that's very good. Let me know if you need. I know Northwest Liberty News, Jason would be willing to come back out again. So let me know if you need him, and I'll pass the message on to him.
I will take all the help I can get. I will just put that out there.
Okay. So if you got any volunteer camera folks out there who know how to take good footage and upload it onto the internet, you're more than welcome, right, Mary?
That's absolutely right. And we'll treat you well.
Good to go. They'll feed you well. Well, a lot of lessons learned out of this. We learned a lot from Bundy Ranch. We learned a lot from Ferguson. We're learning more from this. And as we said earlier, it's going to get better every time. And the broader freedom movement, we'll learn from it as well. I look forward to the after-action reports and lessons learned that come out of this operation. So any closing comments, Joseph, or anybody else? Anything else you want to say to the folks?
No.
I'd just like to look at me talking over Joseph, but I would just like to say a big thank you for all the support and the good wishes that I hear when I'm talking to the media and on these radio shows. I need to pass that along. Thank you very much.
This is Scott Hicks. I want to make a point. Mary, are you a combat veteran?
No.
Okay, that's my point. We don't need people that are necessarily combat veterans. We don't need people that are specifically any one type of thing. We can use everybody in some fashion or another. We got people that bake pies. We got people that pick up trash. I'm watching a guy right now that's sorting through recyclables, literally, water bottles and all that kind of stuff to make sure it goes to the right locations. And that guy's got to be at least in his 80s, if not older. I'm literally watching him out the window right now. But so we can use everybody as long as you're 18 or over. That's what we need. We just need bodies to show up and come do the job. Come help us. The more, the better. Just be prepared to be here for a while, especially the weekday people. If you got time, please come.
Yeah, and I got to reiterate what Scott's saying there. It's bodies. It's not the guys on the security team. That's 10% of this operation. It's an important part of the operation, and we've got very well-disciplined, high-skilled people on that. But it's all the logistical support to keep that running. And, we need support personnel. And it could be shuttle drivers to lead in and out of the mine because of the type of terrain they're driving through. It can be people checking at the gate, running logistics, answering emails, inventorying supplies, staffing a radio for ham communication, running the medical tent, just helping in the cook kitchen, making sure people are getting fed and standing up. I mean, I'm going, and when I walk in through here, I literally have people chasing me down, hand me a plate of food, say, I haven't seen you eating today. You need to sit down and eat something, because we're very busy and we're constantly in motion. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. We have site security where literally as a vehicle pulls up to come onto our compound in staging, they are vetted, they are signed in, and their vehicle is inspected. Our security teams do a once-over of their vehicle underneath the carriage, inside the vehicle. They look the whole thing over before they're allowed on the security compound. So, opening and closing the gate to allow people in and out. That type of support is critical, and it's needed. So anybody can come. This is still an active operation. We do not have any stand down. We need people to come out and support it.
And one last point I want to make is you see some chatter online. It's like, well, they're saying it's not a standoff, and so why should we even go there? And the Oath Keepers are making this bigger than what it really is. And I think the whole point is to preclude that from happening. You're there to cut it off at the pass, to let BLM know they can't just run roughshod over these people and light their cabin on fire. So your whole point is to keep things calm and give the miners a chance to go and get their day in court. But you can't do that if you wait until the cabin's burning.
Well, and that's a good point, Stewart, because there's a couple things that have come out of this in analogies and things. One of them was, well, why do you need security teams up there with guns? Every single time BLM came onto that mining claim, they were armed. They didn't come in holding a bouquet of flowers. The second part is they have a history of going on to claims, confiscating equipment, and burning cabins down to the ground. When they do that, they go in with a tactical team. That tactical team clears and secures that mine site, and then their fire teams, their firefighters, and their fire staff come in and they burn the cabin. That's the way they operate. And as Rick said, the only reason BLM did not come onto my mining claim and burn down my cabin is because he had the Oath Keepers up there, the 3%ers up there, the constitutional groups protecting his Fifth Amendment rights that were armed. We were exercising the Second Amendment. This is how it works. When someone is denied their Fourth Amendment due process with illegal search and seizure and their Fifth Amendment due process, then we stand there professionally and quietly exercising the Second Amendment so they don't come in and do that or violate it. If people want to look at that, when you go to the Bank of America and there's a security guard standing outside to protect their assets from being robbed, that's exactly what we're doing up there, protecting their assets from being illegally taken by the Bureau of Land Management. And that's what's so critical about this. So I don't know what people are looking for as a standoff or whatever they want to title it, but we are having a huge impact here, and we are protecting constitutional rights. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. It's about protecting our constitutional rights and keeping government constrained by the Constitution as it was intended by our founding fathers.
And I think a fair analogy, frankly, is with the arsonist in Ferguson. Our guys guarded buildings against arsonists who wanted to set them on fire, and unfortunately the BLM is acting just as bad as the arsonists. They want to come and light cabins on fire,
exactly.
Whether there's someone inside or not. So I kind of see it as analogous to that. I don't care if the arsonist has a uniform on or not. They're an arsonist.
Well, it's a stand-up, not a stand-off. We're standing up for what's right, period. And
right.
if everybody stands up, there is no stand-off. We don't have to get to that point that happened at the bridge at Bundy Ranch. We don't have to get there as long as we're there first and as long as we're all standing up together. The masses are what control what happens. Otherwise, you just have small operations units of government control that can control the masses if they don't stand up together.
And that's the point. I think the founder's wisdom spoke to that. They understood that if you're not united as a community, in their day it was every able-bodied male was in the militia, and that's what kept the secret police at bay throughout history. They can't just come run roughshod over you if you're a united community. So you're right. If people were to stand up together, if everyone in the West were to stand up and start using their land again, start logging again and fishing and mining and running their own affairs again, what could they do? There'd be too many people doing it all at once.
Yeah, it's very true.
I had one other thing. We were talking about requests of different groups of people and types of people. One of the things that I've seen out here, because of exhaustion, because of the hours that people are working, I know that I've been going to bed at 11 and getting up at 3 a.m., and I've seen a lot of people are hunkered over and are bending. If there's any licensed massage therapists that can do physical, muscular, help with people's aches and pains and that kind of stuff, I know the people that are working the computers, their hands are cramping up. The people that are walking in the woods, they're carrying a lot of gear and they're getting sore. So if there's any licensed massage therapists that can come out and help, I think that would be a great thing to go along with the medical staff.
All right. So Scott's looking for a back rub.
Hey, you shoot for the moon and you take what you can get.
All right. Well, hey, guys, thanks for taking the time out. I know you guys are busy out there. We really appreciate that, and we're going to do the best we can to get you more volunteers and also some more financial support. So we'll do our very best, and I'll probably be seeing you guys there shortly myself, too. I want to come and put eyes on.
Looking forward to seeing you, Stewart. This is Scott Hicks. You have a wonderful day, and I'm going to go back up and keep doing what I do.
All right, you guys take care.
Sorry, I stepped away, and thank you for that. I just had a couple of volunteers come up dropping off the supplies, and they came up and gave us hugs and everything like that. So thank you for the support. We need people, and we're going to continue on until we're told or we hear differently.
All right, sounds good.